But with Chanukah in the air, you can tell when Chanukah is in the air because right after Sukkot they start selling sufganiyot, right? And we don't eat those because they're terribly unhealthy. You know that. Right? They call them donuts. Obviously, these people have never been in the United States of America. They have no idea what a donut is. Here, what they do is they take old challah rolls, they soak it in oil long enough that if you put in a wick, you can recreate the Chanukah miracle. You understand? And they put in some jelly. Now, the worst thing about these things are everyone knows you shouldn't eat them, but they cover them with enough powdered sugar so it falls all over you. So everyone knows you had a sufganiyah. You see? And if you try to brush it off, it just gives your clothing a glaze. So, you can't get rid of it, So, and if that doesn't work, then all of a sudden the jelly squirts out on top of you, So between the jelly and the powdered sugar, you might as well just give it up. Anyway, so I wanted to speak a little bit about Chanukah, and I have a unique position. It's very interesting. God has a sense of humor. I'm one of 6 boys. There were no girls in my house, except for my mother, if she was a girl. I don't really know. We never determined. But we were 6 boys, and I have 8 daughters. And yes, indeed. These things have to even themselves out. I was, in fact, going to open my own seminary. I was going to call it Orlofsky. But so I get a uniquely girl perspective on things. Now, you have to understand, because I didn't have any sisters, we didn't have any gender-appropriate jobs in my house. So my mother taught us how to cook and how to clean and how to do laundry and how to do shopping. This Katno Adoris, I could come back on my bicycle pulling a wagon filled with groceries behind me, a shopping wagon. And my brother was able to pull 2 and steer with his feet. I wasn't on that madrega, but, So, of course, my wife, her mother never allowed her in the kitchen because she was only supposed to study. She was raised to be an intellectual. Just shows you that opposites attract. So I, again, I have a whole different perspective. When I was a guest, I was very popular because, my mother's mantra was, it's the maid's day off. So you would right away get up and start clearing off, and that's how we did it. So I would be a guest at someone's Shabbos table, and at the end of the course, I'd start clearing off and, helping to serve. And the husband would always look at me aghast and says, no, my wife does that. I said, I'm sorry, I wasn't raised that way. And I noticed the wife almost never complained, She seemed pretty okay with it, But so you get a perspective. And one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of Yahadus is geared towards men, and women are sort of an afterthought. Now, this is not meant to be anything other than that's just the way society usually goes. There was somebody in the Torah Masorah Convention who gave a whole speech about this once. He said they were over somebody's house, and it was a widow, and she wanted to say, the Yihiratzon for the Balas Habayis, and there wasn't any printed in the benches back then. It's not because there isn't one; it just wasn't done. It wasn't the normal way of doing things. So because of that, particularly when it comes to shiurim, women are very often given a men's shiur, and then there's a little tagline added on at the end. I'll give you an example. You come to Chanukah, and a lot of the sichot, a lot of the shmuz and a lot of the ideas that have to do with Chanukah talk about the power of Torah Sheba'al Peh. And I have been at women's shiurim where the rabbi gets up and he speaks all about Torah Sheba'al Peh and the power of Torah Sheba'al Peh and how Chanukah is all about the Torah Sheba'al Peh and how the Greeks pushed us to develop the Torah Sheba'al Peh. And that's the idea of olive oils. You have to squeeze the olive in order to get the oil out. And it's all about Torah Sheba'al Peh. And when he's all done, he says, of course, women don't learn Torah Sheba'al Peh, but you can support your husbands. Ta-da! Thanks for coming. And to my mind, I don't. If I was a woman, I wouldn't find that particularly meaningful, right? Now it's not a problem because most of the people weren't listening to him anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But but it's a sad thing, Things have to be geared towards the particular audience. So I want to pick on a particularly woman's relationship to Chanukah. Because you have to understand, when a moed comes around, it means it's an opportunity. It's a moment in time. Time is not a circle, as the Maharal explains. It's a spiral. You're always coming to the same points, but on a higher level. And it means there's an opportunity. There's a certain koach that exists in Chanukah, certain koach that exists in Sukkot, certain koach that exists on Purim, and women miss out on almost all these things, right? Because Purim, women are basically trying to keep people from throwing up in their house, right? Sukkot, you're sitting in the house while your husband and 2 sons are crouched on the little half sukkah on the mirpeset there under the people's drying clothing that's dripping down on them, you know what I mean? Or you're in the house, you know. You miss out. Simchas Torah is that joyous time where you get to watch the men dance with Torahs. So, you know, so for a lot of things you get left out. Now, this is particularly interesting when you come to Chanukah. And I'll explain to you why. Women are chayiv in lighting the menorah, right? Women are supposed to light the menorah. It's a mitzvah supposed to have. It's a mitzvah sasei shazman grama, right? And as we know, all positive mitzvahs dependent on time, women are exempt from. So how come when it comes to lighting the menorah, you're supposed to? So the Gemara has this interesting line. It says, Ki af hein ba'oso hanes. They were also in the miracle. Now, if you read that line, you would say, once again, the women are sort of an afterthought. Yeah, they were also in the miracle. Says the Rashbam, Tosfos brings down the Rashbam, when it says, Ki gam heim hayu ba'oso hanes, it means they were the ikar of the nes. Therefore, when it comes to the mitzvahs of Pesach, the Seder, and all of the mitzvahs that go with it, they're chayiv. Why? Because the only reason we were redeemed from Egypt was because of the Nashim Sidkaniyos, because of the women. And that's the only reason we have Pesach. So, of course, they're going to be chayiv in it. They're chayiv in Mikra Megillah. Women have to go to the Megillah reading. That's where we have all that wonderful experiences, you know, where, you know, you have to have 2 minyanim. You know, first, like, the men go to shul, and then they have a women's reading, you know. When we were first married, I used to tell my wife, you know, we had small children. I said, listen, you go to the main minyan. I'll go to the ladies' minyan. Because they always like to have a minyan there, and most of the men don't really volunteer. And I'm willing to volunteer to be for the minyan. I pulled this off for about 5 years till my wife figured it out. You see? Because when you go to the main minyan, that's where all the children are. And they say, Haman, and the kids are banging and screaming, you know, and they've got these gigantic groggers, grog, 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 you know, and they have these air horns, and explosive devices, M16s. When you're halfway through the Megillah, you don't care about Haman. You want to kill that kid. You understand? You go to the women's laning, they go, Haman. So my wife figured it out. She says, that's okay. You go to the main minion. I'll go to the ladies' minion. So, what a scam. It worked for a while. But anyway, so why are women mechayev in that? Because of Esther. The whole nace came about because of Esther. So you're going to say women aren't chayev in it? And says the Rashbam, and by Chanukah, it was Yehudis and the Bas Kohen Gadol. So it's not that women are an addendum. They are the main miracle of Chanukah, and I will illustrate this with a very interesting halacha. When you light the Neiros Chanukah, there is a halacha. Women don't do work for the first half hour. Women don't do work. They don't sew, they don't do whatever it is. They don't do certain work during that half hour. Men are allowed to. Men are allowed to. I asked this once to a group of ladies, why do you think that is? And they said, because men never do any work. So you don't have to make a halacha for that, you know what I mean? Okay. That's definitely one approach. Pashtus, if there's an Isser Malacha, it means that there's a higher hargosha of the Yom, Lidugma, right? Shabbos is the most Kodesh. It has the most Isser Malacha. Yom Kippur is the next. It has the next highest level of Isser Malacha. Yontif is next, has the most highest Isser Malacha. Chol HaMoed's next, has the most, right? Like that. If there's an Isser Malacha, it's more of a Yontif. For women, Chanukah is more of a Yontif than it is for men, because they have an Isser Malacha. Men don't have an Isser Malacha. So Chanukah is very much a woman's holiday. I mean, it's hard to believe, because you don't really get that, yeah? So here's the interesting thing. Let's give a little twist, yeah? Here's the halacha. If you have a husband, you don't light the menorah. Your husband lights the menorah, you don't. Isn't this interesting? Women have a greater hargosha of hadlokas neiros than the men do, but they don't light it. The men light it, and yet they're the ones who appreciate it more. Now, astounding concept, right? Why is that? So let's understand the concept of Chanukah. I want to pull out a very, very arcane halacha. Yeah? I always, when I speak, I say, the most important thing, whatever we're learning, is it has to be relevant to our lives. I speak to students all around the world. People who had 1 hour in a Reform temple on a Sunday morning, to people who went to the finest yeshivas in Beis Yaakov's. And I always ask them, what is the most frustrating thing about your Jewish education? And no matter who I'm talking to, they say the same thing. It's not relevant to my life. It's not relevant. Yeah. Your son comes home, learning Gemara. Abba, why do I have to know this? I don't have an ox, and I'm not planning on buying one. You understand? I don't run through the street with pictures, If I marry a woman, it'll be with a ring, not with a piece of silk of indeterminate value. If I divorce her, it'll be in Beis Din. I won't throw my get from my roof into her chutzah where it bursts into flames on the way down. And these are all the Gemaras that people were sitting there learning. Yeah? And what does this have to do with my life? And if something's not relevant, it's a problem. And we have to be relevant. I was in a shiur once with Moshe Shapiro where he said the following. Lumar manas lasos. Whatever you learn, you have to turn it into action. There's no such a thing as learning something theoretical. If you learn a Rashi, if you do a mitzvah, if you learn a pasuk in Chumash, whatever it is, it's got to touch your life. You got to turn it into reality. And he looked at us and he said, second pasuk in the Torah, and the world was emptiness and void and darkness upon the deep water, and the Spirit of God hovered above it. And he looked at us and said, what's the la'asos of that pasuk? How do I turn that into relevant lamaisa in my life? Forget about the answer for now. We're a little pressed for time. Yeah? But the question is, it can't be that I'm learning something that doesn't have direct relevance to my life. So therefore, if there's a halacha, men light the menorah, women don't light the menorah, but women don't do malacha, there has to be a reason behind it. Yeah? So I bring you a rather arcane halacha. Yeah? I have an apple on a tree, and a dead sheretz, which is our usual example of something that's tamei, touches that apple on the tree. Is the apple tamei, impure, or is it still taha? Is it still pure? This is an all play. Is this the English-speaking group? I just realized. Oh my gosh. It's pure because, no, not because it touched it. It's attached to the ground, and it's attached to the ground. It doesn't become tamei, right? Beautiful. I pull the apples off the tree and put it in a basket, and a dead sheretz touches it. Is it tamei? No. Why? Because there's a halacha, an arcane halacha. It first has to become wet on purpose, right? Wet on purpose. I take Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice. Those of you who are from America, please just take a moment. I don't know, there's no orange juice that comes close. You know how it glugs into the, glug, glug, glug. You take a sip and your mouth goes numb, and the sugar high, yeah? I pour Tropicana orange juice all over it, and then the sheretz touches it. Is it tamei? No, because Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice is not a liquid. Vos? Yeah. The Torah says there are only 7 liquids that are liquids. Yeah? They are known by the mnemonic device as Yad Shochat Dam. Yayin, wine. Dalid, dvash, honey. Yeah? Shin, shemen, oil. Ches, chalav, milk. Tes, tal, dew. Yeah? The last dalid is dam, blood. Yeah? And the last mem is mayim, water. It has to be touched by one of those 7 liquids, or it's not considered very, very arcane. Rabbi Kornfeld wrote a whole series of svarim and insights. He's in charge of the Daf Yomi Institute. And he said to me once, everything in Judaism ties together. If there are 7 mashkim and there are 7 holidays, probably each one of those holidays corresponds to a liquid. Let's see if it's right. Sukkot, water. You say the tefillah for Geshem, you pour water on the Mizbeach. That's an easy one, right? Purim, Wine, right? We all know that one. You do wine because wine is the whole nace came about through wine, etc. Chanukah, olive oil, right? That's an easy one. Notice the two Dirabanan holidays, Purim and oil, have two liquids that you have to make, man-made. You have to squeeze them to produce them, right? Okay. Shavuos, milk, right? Cheesecake, we know that one, right? Rosh Hashanah, honey, dip the apple in the honey. Have a sweet new year, right? Okay. Pesach, blood, right? You put the blood on the doorpost. B'damai chayi. You bake your matzahs with the blood of a child. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. This is being recorded. It's a joke. It's a joke. We don't really do that. I was at the Council of the Elders of Zion, and we outlawed that, so it's not happening. Anyway, but that's also a joke. That's a joke. Anyway, sometimes I'm teaching and girls are writing down. I said, no, it's a joke. Don't write that down. Anyway, and that leaves Tau due for Yom Kippur. Right now, I have a share on each one of these things, but I obviously only want to focus on one. Olive oil. What is special about olive oil? Well, you squeeze it, but once you've got the olive oil, you know what's unusual about it as opposed to the other liquids? It floats. It does not mix, right? Hence, a little tidbit for you since I did do cooking. Yeah, the proper way to make a salad, most people don't know this, is first you prepare the greens, you tear them, you don't cut them, you tear them into pieces, and then you prepare your salad dressing. But first you add the oil to coat the leaves, and then you mix up the other ingredients and accrue it and pour it on top, right? This is the fairish joy of cooking. I mean, I'm not giving you any chidushim here. You know, so that's oil doesn't mix, and that's why when you see, you make your own salad dressing, you mix it up, and you see slowly the oil flows to the top. Why doesn't that happen with commercial dressings? Xanthium gum. In case you're ever wondering what that's doing there, it's to keep everything glued together. Yeah. Anyway, this way you can chew your salad and blow bubbles. Anyway, so oil doesn't mix. Now, isn't this interesting? What was the entire theme? You see, Yavan was a strange bird when it came to Gullus. Everybody came to Gullus, and it's called one of the Arba Golias is Yavan. They destroy the base of Mikdash and they send us into Gullus. That's what they do. Or they don't let us rebuild the base of Mikdash. They keep us in Gullus. That's what Bavel did. That's what Rome did. That's what Paras and Madai did. Yavan didn't want to destroy the base of Mikdash. They didn't want to exile us. They wanted to usurp it. And they wanted to say, you Jews are no different than everybody else. 3 days of darkness came to the world when Ptolemy forced us to translate the Torah into Greek. Why? Because now the Torah is not something special. You don't have to go to a rabbi. I put it on my bookshelf of classics. You know, there are these barren review notes on books. You know, if you don't want to actually read the book, you can read the summation. There's one on the Old Testament. You understand? It's a piece of literature. Stick it on the shelf, and that's it. It's not a problem. They wanted to reduce whatever we had, that we are nothing special. We are the same as everybody else. And that's why, what did they do? Yeah? Upartu chomos migdalai v'timu kohashmanim. What a battle plan. They wanted to break holes in the wall to the base of Mikdash and defile our oil. That was their battle plan. Spartacus, Eradicus, hepatitis, let's go. Tame, and they were matame all of our oil. Phew, that was great. Why in the world would you do that? Because they understood what oil meant to us. Oil doesn't mix. And you Jews want to live separate, and that's not going to happen. You're going to be like us. And they brought to the world sports, theater, university, science, sports, everything that we call culture, they brought to the world. Guess what? People loved it. Everybody was being sucked in. They were becoming Hellenists. There was a very small group that were opposing it. Now, what started the rebellion? What urged the people to do it? I'm going to tell you a very uncomfortable story. Very uncomfortable. Yeah? It was the story of the Bas Kohen Gadol. It's brought down in the Midrash. The Bas Kohen Gadol was supposed to get married, and the Greeks made this rule in order to try to destroy the holiness of the Jewish people, and that is that any bride had to face the fact that the Roman general might show up on her wedding day and have relations with her first. There's nothing you could do about it. That was it. It was that or be killed. And the rabbi said, listen, it's basically a case of rape, so, it's not a problem. And what do? You have to live with the bad situation. So the Bas Kohen Gadol on her wedding hears that the Hegmon is on his way. And she comes out to the smorgasbord without her wedding dress. Somebody said to me, was she wearing another dress? No, she had no dress. Yeah, she came out. Yeah. And you can imagine how scandalized this was. And she says, oh, I forgot. You're a whole bunch of tzaddikim. You're a whole bunch of great people. You wouldn't want to see me like this, but you have no problem turning me over to a Greek general like this. Ooh, them's fighting words. And when the general came, the Kohanim got up and killed him. That was the beginning of the rebellion. You know who started the rebellion? It was a woman. You know why? Because who senses Portso Homos Migdalai breaking down our walls? There's a word for that. That's called pritzis. Who appreciates that most? Women. Because they're the ones who appreciate that there's an idea that I don't want to be out there on display. There's a value to being able to have a certain sense of privacy of what we call tznius. Yeah? I know women almost never hear about this concept of tznius, so I'll introduce it. Yeah? And so they fought to regain the tznius of the Jewish people. We don't want to be with everybody else. We don't want to be mixed together with everybody else. And you know who fought the war? The Kohanim. Why? Because the Kohanim are the next most separate group of people. They have special clothes that they wear, and they're exaggerated. The sleeves have to come all the way down into their hand. The hem has to go all the way down to their feet. Sound familiar? They have a belt 32 amos long. You know how long it takes to put that on in the morning? Next time you complain about your shaitel, you understand? 32 amos, wrapping that around over and over and over again. Yeah? Everything is their clothing is a big thing. They can't eat with everybody. They have to maintain a higher level of kedusha. They eat truma. They have to be tahor. They can't go to funerals. It's unbelievable. They have to maintain this different level. This is how they knew when they did excavations if it was a Kohen's house, because they would find that the kalim, the things in the house, were made out of stone. Why? Because they're not makabel tumah, right? A person's tameh, they touch your coffee cup, that's it, you're done. It's tameh. So you have my stone cup, I don't have a problem. You don't appreciate this now. When tumah and tara come back in, you'll first see what that means. Someone is tameh, and women sometimes become tameh. They sit on the couch. Afterwards, you have to take it to the mikveh. They ride in the car. Got to get a drive-through mikveh. You know what I mean? They touch any of the kalim. You have to take them all to the mikveh. You think Pesach's a problem? Forget about it. So here's this poor Kohen, and he's just trying to get through the day. You know what I mean? Don't touch my stuff. That's my chair. Don't sit in my chair. You know what I mean? And to be able to maintain this. And they fought this war for one reason: leave us alone. Upartsu chomos migdalai. They wanted to break down our walls and matame our oil. And you know who led the fight? The women. Says the Chassam Sofer. You know why women don't light the menorah? Because the ikr mitzvah is to light it in the chutzner. So a woman's going to go out onto the street to light the menorah when she's the one who led the fight that we should be more private? It's a contradiction. She senses it greater. She sees that oil floating above the water and the fire, the flame floating above the oil, and she appreciates it more. But it's in order for us to be able to have that sense of privacy of the Jewish people. It's a sad reality. Yeah. I once heard Rabbi Kaufman from Waterbury. Yeah, when he was still in Far Rockaway. I heard him speak once, and he said, my parents may not have been as mitzvah observant as some people are today, but they were proud Jews. There were certain things, Jews do. We're not like everybody else. We behave ourselves. This is something that Jews do. Today, there are people who are very mitzvah observant, but they don't think like Jews. that inherent holiness, that inherent purity that always define the Jew. They keep the mitzvos, yeah? I had a guy who said to me once, he says he had a student. The kid says, Rabbi, I don't know what you want from me. Yeah? I just want to go into my father's business and make a lot of money. I want to marry a beautiful girl, buy her jewelry. I have his number if you're still interested. Anyway, I want to go away on vacations. I want to have a big house. I want to drink fine wine, fine scotch, eat in fine restaurants. What's wrong with that? And I'll also learn, and I'll also, have a daf yomi. I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the perfect life if you're not Jewish. He says, no, but I'm going to learn daf, and I'll learn daf yomi. I said, so you're not Jew, learn daf yomi. This guy at a chavrusa used to learn daf yomi, and one day he gives him an invitation to his son's bar mitzvah. He said, I'd love to come. He said, I want to give you an aliyah. He says, I can't. He says, why? He says, I'm not Jewish. He says, you're not Jewish, but you come and learn Gemara here every day with me. He goes, oh, it's so intellectually exciting. He says, but you come to shul on Shabbos. He says, oh, I enjoy the service so much. He says, but you know that a non-Jew is not allowed to keep Shabbos. He says, before I go to shul on Shabbos, I put a handkerchief in my pocket, so I'm carrying. He says, but we have an Erev. He says, you hold from that Erev? So you're doing mitzvahs. But it's a mindset. Chanukah is a time, especially when the rest of the world, with all their lights and all their sails and all their excitement is going on. And we sit with our little candles, the little flames flickering, and we look at that and see how the oil doesn't mix. We fought for the right to be separate. We fought for the right to be private. We fought for the right to maintain our dignity. That's the power of Chanukah. When a woman walks into Chanukah, she sees that menorah and knows how she was moise nefesh, what she went through to get this, and understands the power of Chanukah that much more. Emir Hashem, when this holy, holy time comes, we should be able to understand that those menorah, those Chanukiot, those candles are burning for you. Ask not for whom the candles burn for you, to paraphrase. Yeah? You're the ones who appreciate the Nes of Chanukah the most. And Amir Hashem, we should tap into that energy this year to be able to raise ourselves in holiness, purity, Kedusha, and Torah. Thank you very much.